Welcome to the Psychology Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Hoye. The Psychology Talk podcast is a unique conversation about psychology from around the globe. We bring you ideas from mental health practitioners and experts to keep you informed about the latest issues and trends. Topics include developments and research in psychotherapy and social sciences, hypnosis and mind-body treatments, meditation and spirituality, and new treatment modalities. And while you're listening, please take a moment to subscribe and give us a review at your favorite streaming site. It helps us to grow and further reach people with quality programming. And now, here's the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I am delighted to be speaking with Dr. Ian Wickramasekera. Dr. Ian is a faculty member of Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, and a lifelong explorer of consciousness studies, biofeedback, hypnosis, Bon and Tibetan Buddhist traditions, a scholar, and a researcher. He's won a number of awards in these areas, including the prestigious Clark L. Hall Award and Milton H. Erickson Awards from the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. He's also the past president of the American Psychological Association's Division 30, the Society of Psychological Hypnosis. Ian, welcome to the show.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Scott.
You say that with such congruity and regard and sincerity.
Right? Meanwhile, on the inside, I'm like, no, I love you so much, brother. And it is wonderful to be here with you. Yeah.
Well, so like at your suggestion, I think it's a great suggestion. I thought we'd have you on the show to talk about hypnosis and talk about its correlation with meditative practices and indigenous healing and spirituality. Maybe we could do that, especially your background in Tibetan Buddhism. There's such good overlap there to talk about. And of course, you're an expert on empathy and hypnosis, so that's probably going to sneak in there too. And so where would you like to start? How would you like to introduce yourself as a person on the planet, besides the illustrious introduction I just gave you?
Oh,
how'd you get here?
Well, let's see. I'm reminded of, I think it was Richard Bandler. I can't remember who it was. It was like writing down his profession as he's entering the country. And I think I heard tell he wrote, I blow minds for a living.
Well, that's a heck of a profession.
but seriously, I'm a person who's just really obsessed with all of the mysteries of life, about what it means to be a human being, and a human being that feels like we're in this world around that we keep projecting and not noticing that we're projecting it, or even that we're projecting the illusion that we're one person. And I'm really obsessed with the big questions of that, just philosophically, but also what it means, in terms of working with suffering and clinically as a psychologist, and particularly health psychologist. I work with people who feel that they're trapped in a body that's filled with pain, and they have no control over that other than begging people for drugs and surgery. And, sometimes those do work. A lot of times they don't, or if they do work, they come with side effects that might have been worse than the original pain.
Indeed.
And so I just really love helping people, gain freedom and insight into the illusory nature of who we think we are, and expanding that and growing with it and beyond it, or whatever needs to happen. And also understanding our experience of the world is just as dreamlike as our experiences of who we imagine ourselves to be. And I guess that's a pretty good introduction. Yeah. I really think
that's
about
a lot.
These.
That's you come from this liminal space of flexibility and creativity.
Yeah,
and you try to make that a space that you can pick up with you and take with you, and as you encounter other beings, provide that space for them.
Meeting fellow dreamers on the path.
There you go. Right. Even if they don't know they're dreaming. They haven't woken up.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great way to put it. So with that in mind, like, where does hypnosis fit into all that? What is hypnosis and where does it fit into that?
Yeah, just what is hypnosis thing? Really important question. It doesn't seem to have just one nature, but where it fits in with what we were just talking about is no matter how we define what hypnosis is, being introduced to it, no doubt, really puts people into the dreamlike nature of our experience of self and our dreamlike nature of our experience of the world, and gives people a tool that they can dream better dreams. And so the nature of hypnosis that I'm kind of referring to here, although there are many other things we could say about hypnosis's nature, is that it has a lot to do with integration of our mind-body perception, and that hypnosis really gives an amazing ability for people to gain more control over the dreaming aspect of how they experience both their bodily self in terms of reducing pain or discomfort, but also psychologically and spiritually, to kind of look at, how they view themselves and how either that's serving them or not serving them. And they could dream other dreams and better ones by using things like post-hypnotic suggestions to kind of zone in on the part of them that never was broken. And that even though, your back is broken, it doesn't mean your spirit is broken, and you can use that strength of the spirit that you can find that's never been broken, even with very complex trauma. You can always find with hypnosis, a part of the person that is still very strong and loving and ready to give help that not just affects the mind, but then affects through mind-body integration, all the physical problems they have. And if it can't completely eliminate the physical issue, it gives a way of coping with it that makes it of less consequence to the person. And it's not the central limiting part of their life anymore, that they have this disability or they have this, difference from how they used to experience their body. It can let go of, I've worked with people with severe burns on the face, and, they just feel like they don't want to go out anymore. They don't want to engage in new relationships. They really imagine themselves to be this monster. Quite rightly, they get, not rightly, they get this feedback, but they do really get, horrified reactions from people and feel like that means they're trapped in that. But yet, on the other hand, they're still alive and their heart is still open, and they can talk and they can engage in relationships with people who can love them, even though they imagine they look like a monster. If you love somebody, that's the least likely thing you're going to be noticing after some time. So I just love that, people often feel totally trapped by physical circumstances of their body or ways that they understand the world to be set that are, diametrically opposed to how they would like to experience themselves or how they would like to experience the world. To feel nothing is good about the world, nothing is good about them, or if they do find something good, it doesn't seem to alter the depression or anxiety or anger they're feeling, or stuck in some kind of trauma thing. And the great, message is that, you never lived in reality anyways. So let's work on some different kind of ways of dreaming. And you don't have to believe me. We can ease our way into this through learning some of the basic mysteries of hypnosis and give you the power,
Okay. Yeah. Well, it kind of takes me back to when I was hanging out with you and our friend David Godot, and you said something to the effect of, well, I figure we all live in Plato's cave anyway, so I might as well decorate the thing the way I want it to look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really amazing. Plato's cave metaphor, is really all about that we feel like we experience reality directly. And like in Plato's cave, they're kind of just looking at shadows on the wall, the real world. And it really makes that point. You're not really in touch with reality in that metaphor. And it's actually the same thing too. We're having this experience of ourselves and it feels like we're in real time with one another. But the truth is, there's about 50 to 100 millisecond delay in just how I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not hearing you in real time. Also not seeing you in real time. That's about 100 to 300 millisecond delay based on kind of visual things we're talking about. We're living in memory. It's sensory memory, and it's really fast. So, hey, nobody freak out too much. It's not like, it's a horrible thing. But it is true that our experience of reality is more dreamlike and more like memory based than it is sensory memory based than it is like a direct experience that we can't alter, because we can easily alter any of those processes with attentional screening at 50 milliseconds, and then some of the other processes for, ignoring body sensations at the somatosensory cortex. Those also can be gated to about 50 milliseconds, so that aspects of our reality that we don't feel like we need to be in tune with, they're gated long before you ever had a chance to say, hey, I like that. Just like a sensation of the shirt on my back right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like we normally gate that out, at about 50 milliseconds, that's being gated out, or eventually, I guess evidence shows that's occurring more at like 50 milliseconds, but it's possible it's being gated even further. I don't know. But at any rate, that's well before conscious awareness. And I don't think, I need to turn off the sensation of on my back of the shirt. I've just over time conditioned myself to do it, other than when I start talking about it. Now I'm like super aware of it.
So even our right, exactly. Yeah. Like, and which is very helpful, because if you were constantly feeling the shirt on your back,
yeah,
you'd be constantly aware of it and wouldn't be able to focus on something else. Attentional shifts.
Yeah. And that's that whole limited capacity to process reality is why we don't, process everything. It's more useful to use our, the limitations of conscious awareness to really spotlight things that have meaning to what we're trying to do in the context we're in. So it really isn't of much value for me to notice my shirt or my pants or my underwear. Although we do have, also other automatic means of noticing, like, there was a weird tickling sensation, and we remember maybe, something is now changed in that. And so if there's a change in the input, then we will notice changes, like tickling sensation could be like an insect or a spider, those things, automatic mechanisms will, trigger shifts. And actually, in the technical term for this in event-related potentials, research is mismatch negativity, so that
right.
If there's a mismatch, then that will trigger these awarenesses. And I just love hypnosis because it does give ways of working not only with what we would like to consciously tune out. If we want to learn how to tune out painful sensations that aren't serving us, we can actually learn to do that, even in chronic pain, not just for acute surgical pain or something. But also, we can work with these automatic mechanisms of noticing differences, so that if there is a change in our condition and it's one that we know about, as we like say, people who have back pain often, there's some kind of change. They may notice the back pain, but they can even learn to work with those gating mechanisms too. There's always hope. Since we don't live in a set reality, we have a great degree. Even neurophysiologically, as I mentioned, the evidence shows that when people change these things, their event-related potentials change. It can really show that
you can actually change the way the body receives information and processes it to the brain.
Totally.
So basically, the way you're kind of describing hypnosis is an attentional shift and an absorption, right? And maybe dissociating from physical external reality to a more internal reality. If you choose to, right?
Yes. And then all the spiritual and psychological implications that come from realizing that you had this power of co-creating reality with whatever sensory experiences you're receiving, so that you can become more like a lucid dreamer. And really, and here's where we, get to the kind of the nature of so many indigenous spiritual traditions tell us that the way we experience the world is Maya. an illusion. Both in Hinduism, Buddhism, Bon, so many traditions, all the ayahuasqueros and the peyote sorcerers of the Huichol Indians, all of these people with mystical traditions tell us that the way, like teachings of Don Juan and this kind of thing, that we are experiencing what we call our experience of reality, and we think that's the solid one. That is like a very, very illusory experience.
So you're saying that materialism is a dream, like the materialistic model, the constructed materialistic model of reality is only one piece of the pie. There are other ways to dream it, or there are other ways to perceive life.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the final common arbitrator on one's experience, particularly if it's a disempowering one. Like, I have this disc problem in my back and I'm always going to be fucked because of that. I can't enjoy my life to the same extent I did before. So that means it's awful and is of no use, even in a limited way. And people get really run down by their physical problems. And, I don't blame them, because there is a solution that you are going to have to suffer, because you have this disc that's broken. And no doubt, that's something to learn how to cope with. But the point is that the experience of having that is something you can play along with and learn to experience the dreamlike nature of how that process is occurring through learning hypnosis. You can even learn how to alter that dream. One of my favorite Mark Twain books called The Mysterious Stranger says, you can learn to dream other dreams and better ones.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. So, but what you're talking about here, you're kind of talking about hypnosis is more like cognitive flexibility,
Sure.
and mental attentional shifting, which really is what you're trying to get to the bottom of in any psychotherapy. Right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Right. What makes that different from, let's say, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, or it's CBT or WXYZ PDQ, whatever right. It is you're trying to do? Like, how are any of these different from just talk therapy? Is there a separate special aspect about hypnosis so the audience can kind of pick up on this that's different from other types of therapy? I know the literature. I'll let the cat out of the bag. The literature shows that if you incorporate hypnosis into any other types of therapy, it tends to strengthen the efficacy and the outcome.
That's very true. If I remember correctly, from Guy Montgomery and can't remember, Guy Saperstein was on this one with him, but they did quite a number of meta-analyses, but one of them is exactly what you're saying, that 75% of people who were in cognitive behavior therapy trials that also received hypnosis, 75% of them received a greater level of benefit, statistically significant. I think it was like more than a standard deviation better than people who just got cognitive behavior therapy alone. Now, it wasn't like the people who did cognitive behavior therapy got nothing. They also got a great, benefit. It's just that with hypnosis, it's adding something. And, since you were asking this earlier question, like, what is that? From my point of view, and I think also from Guy Montgomery's point of view, this is really adding a lot of value in terms of bringing a primarily psychological experience of therapy into a mind-body reality that really makes your insights not just something you can tell everybody. I was with my analyst and they said, you got this thing about your mom here. Just remember, you got this thing about your mom. Yeah, by the way, I love analysis and was in it for 5 years, I guess it was. So I'm not knocking on analysis too much here. But it's not just an insight. It's something that you know what to do about it with your mind-body relationship. Like, if somebody is triggering an experience of transference with you, you know that you're like, okay, hold on a sec. You can breathe through it. You can use post-hypnotic suggestions to kind of bring yourself back to an awareness of what's really happening. Yeah, I am having this strange transference relationship with this person. And so let me actually bring all of my wisdom and love, and let me calm my body so I'm not reacting out of anger or fear or discomfort of any sort. I can make my body comfortable and react better to whatever it is that's triggering my negative automatic thoughts, if we're thinking about this, in terms of cognitive behavior therapy. And what would I rather choose to experience about the world I'm in? And then this, really leads to this wonderful spiritual overlay, where you start to really understand, just like all the yogis and yoginis have been saying for thousands of years, really, that the way we experience the world is illusory, and we can gain so much freedom by simply knowing that, and then learning how to tune into the higher wisdom and love that we have possessed since, we're as ever born, at least from the spiritual literature, says that, everyone has this kind of deeper nature they call like Buddha nature in Buddhism, and it's really so many different ways of formulating this idea, but it's just that human beings do have this infinite potential for wisdom and love that can be brought out in any context that a person is in. But you have to remember you have it and know have a way to find it.
Not forgetting.
Hypnosis is so good for that, giving people a way to get back to the
center
places,
Yeah. Well, okay. So like hypnosis and meditation, similar, they're cousins, but they're different. They're both in their deeper level. I think they're both exploratory models for spelunking the mind, if you will, or going.
I love that metaphor. Right?
Yeah. Like, so that, but how do they differ? How are they similar? And let's just throw this out here. Like, you're opening up the space for hypnosis to be something more than just a clinical tool, which it could be, right? Yeah. You could use it to modify your reality for fun.
Yes.
And maybe profits, fun and profit.
Yeah.
Or and likewise, meditation could be fun. It's serious business if it's usually connected to a philosophical or spiritual school. But how are they different? How are they same?
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorite questions, and I know one of yours too. So it's really nice to share this time and space to talk about this. And so I've been as interested in the things that you've already said, and love to hear your perspectives too. But for my money, there was this time, and I'll not pejoratively out Herbert Benson, but there was.
You're like the third. I've been hearing people mentioning him on podcasts, and I know who Herbert Benson is. But go ahead. It's like
Herbert
holy
Benson
synchronicity, Batman. Yeah,
right. So since there are other ones, but I'll just say from my point of view, Herbert Benson, chief of cardiology, at Harvard Medical School, late 1960s, and had a number of folks who were transcendental meditation clients, or I guess patients, and also students, and was really noticing how helpful that could be in reducing cardiovascular risk factors, and began researching how meditation could be even used to prevent subsequent heart attacks after the first one. One of his most important original studies in the early 1970s found that a person utilizing what he called the relaxation response, which is basically some training in kind of self-hypnosis or meditation. Usually he was doing a kind of mindfulness meditation based thing with more explicit, I guess what we now call body scan kind of instructions. That's the way people would relate to it today, even though back in those days, it was really actually a fairly behaviorally oriented muscle relaxation.
Progressive, like the squeezing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even they use those ones, And what they found was, actually, when they compared the results of people who were meditating after their first heart attack or using the relaxation response in any manner to people who just received the standard of care for, afterwards having the first heart attack, the treatment at the time, and I'm not sure if it still is today, was to give a person nitroglycerin as a way of preventing a subsequent heart attack. And it was found that there was no difference between the groups, that those who were practicing the relaxation response without any, nitroglycerin whatsoever received equivalent result to as if they had been taking a nitroglycerin. And so that was a really great thing he did. So now having brought him up a little bit, here's the part where I'll knock him down. He seemed to have really understood that a lot of people didn't like hypnosis in his community, particularly there at Boston. Some of the medical professionals of his day really had all these false ideas about the nature of hypnosis being suggestion and suggestibility. And so he unfortunately absorbed that idea and sort of started talking about the relaxation response was different than hypnosis because it didn't involve phenomena of suggestion, and hypnosis was all about suggestion, and a person wasn't learning any new skills. They were just doing what they were told. And while that might have been good for some people, he preferred to think of relaxation as something that was real and physiological, and hypnosis was not. It was suggestibility, and maybe if he was charitable related to the placebo effect. And none of that turned out to be true. Even his theory of the relaxation response, I'm actually a little bit proud to be the first person to show that his theory of the relaxation response was any kind of skill you could learn that would reduce your autonomic nervous system activity and cause a parasympathetic response instead of a sympathetic one. So what I showed was in Kundalini yoga, you could get a very powerful relaxation response from people in Kundalini breathing styles. And they showed extremely elevated heart rates to the same level as orgasm and, minor heart attacks, actually. That not only relaxation is not dependent on autonomic reduction. You can have relaxation.
That throws a lot of cold water on a lot of things. I mean, all right, we need to get the word out. Down with Herb. Down with Herb.
No, I will also
but that really does. Most of what your psychoeducation is for relaxation. Oh, you have the ANS and the two branches, and this is what you're doing.
This is the relaxation-based nervous system. This is the stress-based nervous system, and none of that's true. And that's just what the yogis had said for thousands of years. Some of the most powerful meditation techniques are actually using both the brakes and the gas, if we want to use those old metaphors, that, you're using both the sympathetic and parasympathetic.
That takes up the whole, for those of you out there who think that hypnosis is just about closing your eyes and imagining something, there's the whole alert state hypnosis that Hilgard and Bonnier and other people have, David Wark and other people.
And David Wark,
right. Yeah. So you can do alert state hypnosis where you're pedaling on a bike or just sitting with your eyes open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Playing a game of golf, shooting some free throws, playing soccer with other people and, getting in sync with one another, being a wonderful musician and playing with others, in a mutual trance experience. Wonderful. Exactly. It's really so much more flexible than the way people describe hypnosis, as if there's only one thing you can do with it. And actually, anything a person can do in life can be integrated with hypnotic procedures if a person is knowledgeable enough about the technologies of hypnosis and how they can be adapted to any circumstance. I have yet to find even one circumstance where hypnosis couldn't, at least in theory, be helpful.
Right. Okay. So let's bring our spotlight back in here. We'll
to the meditation. Right.
Meditation. Okay, so you can do a lot of things with hypnosis. It's more than just the relaxation response. right? And it certainly has some similarities with what you do in meditation. I think people's perception of meditation, however, is restricted to maybe mindfulness and attention to the breathing or a body scan or something like that, right? Or guided imagery. But there's a lot more to meditation. Maybe you can roll that out, because you can let the audience in on your diving into the Bon tradition and Dzogchen and other things in Tibetan Buddhism. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit through Buddhism.
Yes, thank you. Boy, what a great conversation. Thank you, good sir. So just as hypnosis has a lot of, fairly good-hearted, misinformation, about it, that usually people have used it in one context and they think that's the whole thing. Same thing is true with meditation. We've gotten really used to thinking we know what meditation is in this country, because we do have all this great research about mindfulness meditation, and related procedures have expanded a little bit, like with body scan. And also a lot of people are familiar with body scan, and also guided imagery just in general, like John Kabat-Zinn has his mountain meditation kind of visual imagery a lot of people are aware of, or tasting a raisin or something like that. Mm-hmm. But all of that stuff tends to be mainly kind of low arousal, low sympathetic activity forms of meditation. And so people even define meditation operationally that way, that it has to be a relaxation-based thing. But it's really not true. Just the same with hypnosis spans all human activities, so does meditation. In fact, one of my great teachers says that theoretically, there should be over 84,000 different types of meditation to match the 84,000 different ways, hypothetically, a human being can suffer in their life. There should be one form of meditation that would work with any kind of suffering you're having. And they're not all low arousal. In fact, I would say some of the most powerful forms of suffering I experience are more in high arousal states. And it is quite possible not only to use hypnosis, but meditation. And so that's where we really get into what we're missing today in the study of meditation. Scientifically, we're not missing anything in terms of looking at what happens to the brain, what happens to the autonomic nervous system, what happens to the immune system and the body in general when we meditate. We're not missing anything in terms of mindfulness. And there's been wonderful that people like Herbert Benson opened that space up. But it's just that they closed off simultaneously what else it could be by operationally defining, and also intentionally secularizing meditation in a way that distanced it from its origins in mysticism. So in the Dzogchen and the Bon and all Buddhist approaches to meditation, whether they're Tibetan or not, or some other Himalayan school, mindfulness is about putting oneself in a place where you can really experience yourself and your experience of the world with enough attention and with enough space and auspicious, what we would call auspicious circumstances, so that you can really notice, what your experience of the world is like and how that relates to how you think and your thoughts and the illusion of self that you create with your narrative self about the story I tell myself about what it means to be Ian and the aspect of Ian that's alive right now in this moment, and forgetting about the other Ians that, maybe wore a lampshade at a party or actually, I never really did do that. But
well,
I have worn masks.
There's always time, and there's always another ego state who can wear the lampshade. Yeah.
There you go. Right. We'll create one perhaps later sometime together. But that's what you learn. There's a deeper potential for mindfulness to help release us from the illusions of self and to notice the illusions of self. That's what it's not just about, getting rid of depression and anxiety. It's about noticing the real deep illusory nature of our experience.
I had a good conversation with the late Dan Brown, not the novelist, but the PhD Harvard guy.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure he had. Dan Brown probably still had and has his own experience, own conspiracy theories about the world, but
mainly involving Sirhan.
Yeah, and tax problems with the IRS. But anyway, he does in his trainings, when he was any of his trainings he did, especially his last big one, which was with attachment theory.
Yes,
and working on attachment repair with disorganized attachments, especially. He did say, like, a problem with Western techniques of psychotherapy in schools is they want to get rid of something, but like his training in Tibetan Buddhism was like, just take something away. The mind's just going to fill that space back up. It's going to look for trouble. You need to put a positive in its place.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that mindfulness is a way of calming things down. But as soon as you can be mindful as you like, and that's on the meditation, on your Zafu cushion, or on the couch in the office with your therapist. But you go outside, it's going to come flooding back in. All the not so spacious aspects of your mind are going to show back up. And
that's true. We don't really destroy things. There's like a conservation of matter. There's the conservation of mind underlying even the experience of the conservation of there is actual matter. Where this isn't a simulation we're living in here. But so the other that's very true. And then what's neat to know is that the main reason in the Tibetan schools, in particular, for studying meditation was so that you could learn a method of introspection and phenomenological being with the illusory nature of self and the illusory nature of the world, that you could also then have enough clarity about your experience, and noticing thoughts and how they influence you, that you could even do other techniques that would put you much greater depth-oriented experience about the illusory nature of self through, for instance, transferring, imagining one's unity with the deity and finding the aspect of yourself that feels, like you do have infinite wisdom and compassion. Even when you're suffering a great deal, you can, through these other techniques, like when we would call this as a general technique as a guru and or deity yoga, where one imagines whatever spontaneous reflections you have and some visual imagery and some yogic exercises to get your breathing going and feel Kundalini releases from your different areas of your body. We'll just call them chakras here. Mm-hmm. And really get into your direct experience of what it would be like to connect with one's higher wisdom and love and be blessed by it. And through that visualization, to bring the experience of the deity within you. Guru Yoga is very much, and our deity yoga is very much about this kind of transformation. But other things too are that sometimes in these higher order yogic exercises, one can even come to work directly with external projections of the illusory nature of the world. And just like we do in hypnosis, where we might ask a person to imagine, there's a fly buzzing and buzzing around your head, annoying you. And so they have these kind of illusory exercises that help us to realize in Dzogchen, like through sun gazing, sky gazing, moon gazing, all kinds of things associated also with some physical positions of the body that are helpful for experiencing more high arousal and low arousal states simultaneously, that you can really directly experience how much we are making up even our experience of the world that seems to be given around us, and that by its illusory nature, we don't actually have to be trapped in anger about things anymore, or trapped in depression, or trapped in anxiety about. I mean, let's face it, we've been through this pandemic and, school shootings forever. Even, I guess, before the pandemic, so many years. And, it can really feel like there's nothing good left in the world. At times to people, they just really want to turn off the news and not do anything. But by remembering our higher potential in nature, not only can we kind of transcend these illusions and therefore, transcend the negative emotions we often get from facing the suffering of the world, but actually has some courage, to kind of do whatever we can do, with serenity. We can accept, that which we can accept and do things about what we can do, and what we can't do, then can feel good about what we could do, and have some gratitude for the good things in our life, even though there are many sufferings that we seem incapable of eliminating.
Well, turning off the news, but then replacing it with a more positive, something you can.
And some people should turn it off, and some should tune in. It really, people need to, really see what context they're in personally, and some people, it's really needs to learn more about their potential and get encouraged, and then others, they would get more encouragement through tuning more in and seeing they could do right away something. Everyone's in a different place, what they needs to do. There's no one thing, but these exercises often, there's higher meditations, like one is called Togal, and in the Dzogchen tradition, probably the one that I've written the most about as an advanced meditation exercise. You spend a lot of time staying in what we call the natural state through meditating. The natural state simply means a place where one is in the present moment with not too much expectation about how things should be, and also how one would like them to be or how one would not like them to be. You just really let yourself be in the present moment that you're in without any judgment, or for that matter, judgment of judgment if one occurs spontaneously. You're just sort of letting things be fully as they are, and not resisting any aspect of heart or mind or any phenomena, and just being with whatever occurs, or as we say in hypnosis, letting happen whatever happens, and letting the spontaneous nature of our wisdom and love just express itself. And so we start from that place, and then we do sky gazing or cloud gazing or moon gazing. And a lot of times people experience these very powerful, I guess I'm just going to call them hypnotic hallucinations. So that's not really what the tradition calls them, tigle.
When you're saying moon gazing or sky gazing, you mean bringing up that imagery internally and doing that, or actually going outside and looking for ponies in the clouds, or no, nothing like, more internal, right?
No, really. It's more like the second, the ponies.
Second. So you go out and look for the ponies, and you look for the.
But you actually don't look for them, because that would be
projection. Yeah.
Projection. So that's actually, for people who are hypnotically gifted, a kind of a funny trick about this one is that to get the real experience of it, you need to kind of let happen whatever happens, rather than to look for the ponies. Because, certainly, and that's perhaps, one of the differences we might have, at least with the way hypnosis is generally used. We're usually fairly intentional about the kind of work we're helping clients with. So I don't think that's really hypnosis's real nature. Like, I actually don't think, like, the real nature of hypnosis is not about this kind of intentionality. It's just that most of the problems that people come to psychologists and counselors or psychiatrists, whoever, there's some kind of goal. And so things do tend to be more intentional and less open awareness But there have been some really amazing clinicians of hypnosis, like one I know you and I both love, Milton Erickson, who used this kind of paradoxical, let the unconscious, decide rather than you're deciding, and trust in the wisdom of the unconscious, let happen whatever happens. So there are some people who used hypnosis in this more paradoxical, non-dualistic way. But generally speaking, even though it's not hypnosis's nature, most people are trained to use hypnosis with clients in a more simple way, in which we're only thinking about the self as a single
psychic,
ego.
Unipsychic. Well, you were getting
unipsychic,
unipsychic, as opposed to polypsychic. Yeah. So, getting back to these, with this particular meditation you were describing, like moon gazing, cloud gazing, sky gazing. What do they call them? You say hypnotic hallucinations, but they call them something else in the Tibetan tradition.
Yeah, they're called tigle.
Tigle. What's that?
Tigle. And they are, it's so easy to say this wrong because there's whole books of philosophy about what they are.
What is a literal translation from Tibetan, and what is it? How can it really be translated into an English kind of equivalent?
Literal translation.
Yeah.
Literal translation is like luminous sphere, I think. It's definitely sphere is part of it. And I think luminous is also like light, emitting light. I think that's what tigle is. Tigle is also like a drop, actually. So it has to do with the spherical shape, and also the drop-like nature of it. Another word that comes more from Hindu traditions is bindu. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so even there's a whole thought about how this relates to one's internal phenomena, that actually when one sees the tigle or a bindu, depending on what mystical tradition you're employing to do this, you're seeing a reflection of sacred things that exist in the universe in general, but that also these are inside you. Like in particular, the tigle that you might be seeing have to do, this is so funny, Dan Brown translated one of these books. I don't have his version. Oh, I do have his version. Since we were talking about good old Dan. This one's called The Six Lamps. Let me see if.
Ooh, okay, cool.
But anyway, it's called The Six Lamps. And these lamps are the things that allow you to see these non-dual phenomena that are also a projection of what's going on inside your mind and body. And when you see the tigle, one of them was called the lamp of the far-reaching lasso lamp of the eye. I totally butchered the transliteration there, but it's about your eyes are able to see things that are not outside of you, that are actually inside of you. And these tigles are one of them. There are these non-dual experiences of bliss and love and wisdom that come from within you, and that come ultimately, it's thought, from your heart center. And so when you're looking outward to see them, then also you get a chance to connect with how that wisdom and love is within you. And that's the real purpose in it. Not just to see something, but to connect what you're seeing within you, to understand that there is a relationship between what's within you is also out there in the world. And so, there really is a very powerful relationship between the nature of the mind we experience and the nature of the world, in a way that, I'm just going to say, can dramatically transform one's experience of self, but also the body. And some of these yogis do very wild things when they gain this ability to realize the immutable nature of the world. There are many, many yogic stories of great yogis and all the Himalayan traditions, no doubt, and of India, below the Himalayas as well, and all around the world, really, where they do amazing things, where suddenly reach into a cave and pull out, a jewel, or leave their hands in cave walls, and it's almost as if one person I know who saw a yogi doing this, they seemed to be sinking into solid rock, and then they left footprints that they saw right there. So I'm going to kind of leave that one as an aside, because that's exactly why these stories cause Herbert Benson to not go any further than mindfulness meditation. Because when you start talking about these other forms of meditation, the most realized people everyone around them starts noticing they seem to have these parapsychological, transpersonal experiences.
It seems like a lot of like what they call Psy.Ds, like in
Diddy, yes.
Right. These powers, which you're not looking to get them. Mm-mm. You could be, but if you do, you're probably either going to mess yourself up and the world up, or you're so say the traditions, you're not going to get them because you're working too hard to get this, and that's not the point. It's like when your experience of mind and body and matter is non-local, and
yes,
you get past like this, all the dualism that you've been subjected to since birth, from having to be a reactive little hominid and breastfed, and crying for things and everything.
That's awesome. Reactive little hominid.
When you get past that, and you get your degrees and all that, you can go past. I think, and you're right. It does kind of go into more than transpersonal stuff. Perhaps it goes parapersonal.
Yeah, right.
So the ultimate goal, of meditation is to find a perfection in imperfection, and to it's a different kind of intention.
Yes.
Whereas hypnosis is kind of a Western exploration of similar phenomena that doesn't have like as Adlerians would say, its final fictive goal is a lot more symptom amelioration, but it could be used for more than that. And I think somebody like yourself or Dan Brown sees that crossover between those things, right?
That's very true. And so happy to be talking about Dan here. Was such a great master of both the tradition of Dzogchen and hypnosis. And so humble about it that a lot of us never realized it actually until he was so far into both traditions that people that I knew him from the Dzogchen meditation committee were astonished that this guy had decades of being at the heart of hypnosis research and psychoanalysis, in particular with hypnosis, as well as attachment theory and so many. A really great book on even biofeedback he edited, and other mind-body approaches to hypnosis. A lot of those Dzogchen people never knew that he was a great hypnosis master. And also, a lot of people in the hypnosis community, including myself, I had no idea that simultaneously I was learning all this hypnosis and psychoanalysis stuff from him. Even though I was studying Dzogchen myself at the time, I had no idea he was, because when he taught you things, he taught them very purely, without much integration of these things, out of respect for both traditions. And so it took me a good minute. I think it was really only in the last 15 years last 20 years that he was alive, that I realized he had been doing that for 30 years before I realized that he had been a master of both traditions. Like in the Dzogchen tradition, the highest teacher of the Bonpo world is called, we call him His Holiness of Bon. His Holiness of Bon asked Dan Brown, realizing his practice of Dzogchen was very good, and realizing that he'd been a translator of Tibetan since the late 1960s, that he was the perfect person to do this translation of the Six Lamps and many other books too.
Well, I have to get that. I have his Pointing Out the Great Way, which is basically his dissertation from U Chicago. Speaking of that, you didn't know that. I kind of knew that because my introduction to Dan Brown was through a mutual colleague of ours, David Paul Smith, who knew I forget the name of the couple that would lead meditation groups in the Boston area where he grew up. And they said, you want to do what Dan Brown's doing. You need to go to U Chicago and study there and see if you can work with Dan Brown. So he knew about that. David Paul Smith knew about this, but like no one else did. Because when he dove in, when he was working with guys like Steve Kahn as a student of Erica Fromm and you name it, like he was diving in so deep and getting psychoanalysis while simultaneously, or even before in the 60s, he was fluent in Tibetan.
He was, he got at the University of Chicago. He was at the heart of the hypnosis world and at the heart of this deeper potential meditation in Dzogchen, which means the spontaneous great perfection in Tibetan.
But what a wonderful thing! Both of you are bridge builders between these two amazing traditions.
Yep. And one of my great sadnesses was that I really had hoped that Dan and I could work on an article on hypnosis and Dzogchen before he died, and it just wasn't able to happen. Though I'm working on another one now, which I'm going to dedicate to him.
Oh, that's so wonderful! Yeah, and that's wonderful. Yeah, but the fact that you were both doing the same thing, and like.
Him at a much higher level than me.
Well, I mean, there's always, like, everyone has room for improvement, right?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm not downgrading myself. Just he was a real master of both traditions. Yeah. But
you're still there, and you're still able to kind of connect these things. I think it's really sad that in the West we've lost even the inklings of. I mean, I'm sure that there were esoteric traditions like that the Druids had, or Greek or Roman priests had, that went underground, and everything. The materialistic primacy came about. After Francis Bacon and whatnot.
Rene Descartes.
Separation between mind and matter. Church
John
gets
Locke
the mind. But even just the idea of like. Being able to train people to hone their minds to create memory palaces is going back to Greece, right? Why would that not be something that you could teach people and that people could apply? Because eventually electricity is probably going to be gone, and we're not going to have computers, and libraries are going to be gone. So you're going to have your memory palace all worked up, right?
Yeah, why not?
But I mean, seriously though, we've become so lazy, and we've externalized what we could do with our minds so much. And in many ways, it's more efficient, like computer, cloud-based, servers and things like that. But the mind is much more capable, if you apply it, of storing information, extracting traditions, giving traditions out. It's a more flexible, workable, pliable, kind of spacious world that you're living in inside your head and your body, inside your mind and your head and your body. And humanity needs that.
Yes.
It doesn't, so. Yeah. I mean, it really needs that. So I think that
said. Yeah.
Your mission, Dan's mission, people's missions to bring these two traditions and other traditions in.
Really want to highlight again the work that you and David really been doing and having these conferences, and participating in these conferences in India, really bringing these things together. You yourself, really been a part of this, and really want to thank you for the work you're doing in that area too, to really encourage people to get into this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that more Westerners I hope they dive into hypnosis, because it's a way of looking at the mind as more flexible and workable, and that they expand, if they're interested in meditation in their consulting rooms, that they go further than that and look into deeper traditions, Western and Eastern, whatever's there and available that can be shared to help people with compassion and love.
Yeah, going beyond our simple expectations of mindfulness and learning. There's so much more to help relieve people from the illusions of self and the illusions of the world that cause us and all beings to suffer. There's so much greater, deeper potential for that, and why not? Near as we can tell, this is the only life we may have, or at least for most of us, unless we started to get these experiences of other lives, perhaps, from doing these meditations. But most people, they really feel like, near as you can tell, this is what we got. And why not? These things have been done for thousands of years, and very long lineages of great teachers still alive to study with. Why not?
Well, why not? And also, we've had like what, a couple thousand years, 5,000-6,000 years of monolithic empires like that invade each other. It's not much more you can invade, right?
Right.
Antarctica, it is mine. There's not much more you can do with that kind of mindset, winner take all.
Yeah.
Kind of mindset. Why not focus more on what local but non-local, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is that the real origins of hypnosis, though a lot of people will tend to start it with mesmer, which I think is the right thing to do in terms of the historical current that led to theory and practice in hypnosis. But the first person to really actually realize it was a psychological phenomenon and write about it and notice many other interesting things about the nature of mind was Abbe Faria in 1819.
Yeah.
He wrote this book called On the Causes of Lucid Sleep, which was the name he gave hypnosis, lucid sleep, which is a fairly paradoxical thing to call it. You're lucid and you're asleep, and it's more like lucid dreaming in this way. I actually wish we did call hypnosis lucid sleep rather than, like deep sleep, like hypnos or, the god of sleep. But even in his original book, most of that book is written in a very, very spiritual language. And it's written in actually kind of a Catholic perspective of mysticism. And I think it's a real shame that, unfortunately, his viewpoint of hypnosis was almost immediately forgotten, though not his methods, because James Braid used all of his methods and even plagiarized, word for word, some of on the causes of lucid sleep, but left behind, just like was done with meditation, left behind all the spiritual and psychological overlay that wasn't related to being a surgeon, because that's what James Braid was. He was a surgeon. And instead kept using the word neuro. You call it neurohypnotism, like neurofeedback, neuro this and neuro that. Now with brain, now with neuro.
New and improved lucid dreaming with brain. Well, you think about it, he did similar. It sounds like a similar kind of impulse to find something tangible, physical that you can measure, which is what Herb Benson was looking at. Because he was trained in that kind of, post Francis Bacon world.
Right. Yeah.
With, right.
Side order of Bacon. Yes. And, and no doubt, these people had tremendous contributions to science and medicism. But it is, I think, far beyond the time when we should look into, as scientists and clinicians of mind-body medicine, psychology, and medicine in general, what were the limitations of that approach, and what opportunities for new research and new understanding of human nature exist by building off of what they did, rather than to see that as the end of the science. There's more questions raised by our human abilities, and now that they can be reliably measured, thanks, in part to people, in particular, Herbert Benson, we owe a great deal to, because he was so influential in cardiology. And
exactly, yeah.
People knew him to be, not like a P.T. Barnum of research or something, really sucker born every minute, But no, really, we owe them a lot. But also, there are more questions to be raised by, what does it mean that human beings have these abilities, and what are the other ones, perhaps, and how are these related to the indigenous spiritualities and religious practices of, not just, he was talking, of course, I participate in Tibetan things, and in particular, and Indian things. But you mentioned the Druids, and the indigenous psychologies and spiritualities of the peoples of Europe, that really been harshed upon quite a lot, even before the Enlightenment, maybe it was a little less after the Enlightenment. Maybe they were less likely to be burned, maybe a little less likely to be burned as a witch, but still that happened, it still does actually.
Yeah. I think people forget where they've come from. And there's a lot of colonization of the European mind that happened before, I guess, as empires rose, right, and control of anything that would be indigenous, no matter where it was at. If it was a swamp in Brittany, or if it was in a Anglesey in Wales, or the Isle of Skye, or where have you, or in Sweden or Norway. A lot of these. So
there's just so much more we can culturally appreciate around this. It's not just technologies; these are deep spiritual sources of culture, and so we can get enriched in culture and a multicultural understanding of the world in terms of our uniqueness and our heritages, whether we were aware of them or not. It also helps us to, sometimes people feel like multiculturalism is more like this thing about being politically correct. And here is an area where it's very clear. This is, I like being politically correct. I actually kind of like that. It feels like, to me, that means being respectful. But some people feel like there's a way in which it's kind of dissociative or repressive. And so here we reach an area of multiculturalism, which is just lovely. Like, why not just really learn about how our ancestors had this amazing grasp on the nature of the world that our illusion of materialism has dissociated ourselves from,
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been taking it upon myself to learn Irish, and I've been taking classes in it. And the more I delve into it and read about it from my own family's history, the more you see it is a very indigenous language. It's based more on verbs. It's a verb-based language rather than a subject or ego-based language.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Similar to a lot of Native American languages in that sense. Right? So things are in relationship to you, and so it's more verb-based. It's different. It's also a hell of a thing to get around those tenses when you're studying it from a subject and object-based language. Yeah.
Wow.
Perspective.
Yeah. And really, as a way of speaking, it then becomes a way of experiencing a new reality, perhaps.
Thinking and speaking it as you grow. Any languages, right? That's a great way to expand your mind. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great Lacanian, insight, that the language structures reality.
It certainly has a big part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you don't have a word for something, it's hard to perceive it. And also the way that you use a word structures even your unconscious mind's expectations of what it is, So, if you don't expect to see something, you probably won't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You won't see it if you don't expect to see it. Well, what's up? What's new for you? You're working on an article that will be dedicated to Dan Brown. But what else are you working on? You're on sabbatical from Naropa, I believe, right? Yeah, Naropa University.
I am, yeah. So I'm in the middle of doing a lot of retreat practices, actually, some of the ones we were talking about.
Okay.
Actually, this book, The Six Lamps, I'm working with Tibetan Geshe. That means like Tibetan
teacher,
monk. He's a Tibetan monk. And on understanding the deep nature of this text and trying to increase my understanding of how their model of the mind is related to the model of mind, in particular that we find in hypnosis, is really about one of the only places you're going to find a lot of similarities. I shouldn't say it that way. Where you find more in-depth independent hypnotic investigations of the nature of mind, like is the nature of mind singular or plural? So I mean, it's like almost completely ignored in all of psychology, despite the great evidence that the mind has more than one nature. We just tend to just kind of think I have one name and I'm one person, even though the real evidence shows there's very little stability in personality. Very little, very little, really.
Which is paradoxical, and I think there's the tricksters floating around in there somewhere. Yeah,
yeah.
You think you're one person?
Yeah, right. Now let me show you this other way of being, whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you're working on well, that's a lot. I mean, this is like you're taking a deep experiential dive in this, and then you're going to reflect on it and use that in more of your lecturing and teaching and clinical work. And yeah, wow.
Yeah, I'm so lucky, I have quite a number of, I have like 5 very close teachers that I work with in the Tibetan tradition. One, even I'm lucky enough, he lives in Denver, Colorado area where I'm living and working and teaching. And so I rely on them just as any other person studying these things. And just as Dan Brown did, really studying them from their own point of view rather than attempting to learn them while integrating them with the hypnosis at the same time. I feel it's very important to experience a tradition from its own point of view before trying to integrate. And since I started getting to this place where I really am writing about the higher aspects of meditation techniques in the Dzogchen areas, so-called higher, I don't really mean to say they're. What makes something higher is that it's the right teaching for you in the moment. So for some, meditation is, mindfulness is, like Mr. Shen here. He's way more advanced practitioner than me.
He is. He's pretty. Your cat is pretty zen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But higher and lower is relative to the teaching that you need. That's the highest one. But so I am studying these, more advanced things that it takes a while to have practiced mindfulness for quite a number of years. Otherwise, it's really no purpose in doing Togol. If your mind isn't very stable, you might have some experience, but you'll have a much deeper experience of Togol if you've been doing mindfulness meditation for a long time. And you'll be able to not cling to the phenomena that you see, like the tigla. Like that's one of the big problems with, any kind of mind-body technique is once you have the experience of being able to do something, there's a tendency to go, oh, I fucking got it. And you grab onto it and you're like, yes, yes, yes. And, that's not too bad for the moment you're in, but then sometimes people find they're never able to have that experience again.
Well, similar, hypnosis, that happens a lot when people's expectancies, if you will, they're ripe for the experience and it's mind blowing. And the next time it comes along, well, it wasn't like the first time.
Right.
Well, there you go. You have found the mind body crack. It's never going to be like the first time, but you're going to want more of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, that's actually the beauty of it too. You can, what do they say? You can't cross the same stream twice, I forget which Greek philosopher that comes from, but, and that's actually great because, we tend to move around and we cross a lot of streams in life. And, we don't want to just stay in the same place. We want to investigate all the territories. And it's nice to know that things move around and in a way that's useful. The unconscious mind, or like we would call the nature of mind. A lot of times, at least consciously, we're not able to sort of create an expectation of a path. And we can actually rely on, trust the wisdom of the unconscious, Milton Erickson would say. Yeah. But also, we can trust the nature of the path we're on from a Dzogchen perspective. They call sometimes the path on which we neither come nor go. That the path is taking us to and showing us the phenomena we need to be aware of without holding on to it too much and reifying it and saying it will always be like this. Maybe you could say it will always be useful, I guess, whether you like it or not. As long as you don't think like useful means something, it just means it's useful to the context you're in, I guess. I don't know. I keep trying.
Well, it seems like you're working on not mastering the mastery of flow.
Exactly.
Moment to moment. Well, on that note, I think what we'll do is we'll sign off for this time. But Ian, we want you back. We want you back on the show at some point.
Wonderful.
Great conversation. I learned so much, as always, talking to you.
Oh, and me too. I really appreciate the work you're doing, not just in terms of, making other people's ideas, opening, to new audiences, but also the work you're doing around many aspects of hypnosis, but one we was talking a lot about today. You and, David Paul Smith have really done a lot for cross-cultural perspectives on all of this phenomena. So I want to thank you too for the work you're doing.
Well, thank you, brother.
Pleasure of your interview.
Yeah. All right. Well, goodbye until next time.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Psychology Talk podcast. Did you know you can find us on the web all over the place? Well, maybe not all over the place, but you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, loads of places. Please look for us, and if you can, subscribe, like us, leave us a review, send us a comment, a criticism. Hey, we like to hear a lot from people. Go ahead, talk to us. That's why we're here. By the way, this is just a reminder to let you know that all of the material here is for entertainment and informative purposes only. If you do need a therapist or a mental health professional, please seek one out. Music is provided by the band Serenati.